millions of microbeads, restoring flexibility and continued waterproof protection. It's like a skin moisturizer for asphalt shingles. Roof Max treatments are guaranteed for 5 years, and repeating treatments can extend your roof's life for up to 15 years for a fraction of the cost of replacement. Roof Max uses satellite measurement software to provide a hassle-free, contact-free price quote over the phone in under 5 minutes. No in-person house call required. Get your instant quote by calling 352-639-2777. That's 352-639-2777.
Now you did it. Are you completely insane? He's back. He, who must not be named. The man, the myth. The only guy in Ocala to eat his own weight in fried pickles. Twice. Now, you asked for it. Sorta. Live and in person. It's Tom Schmitz.
Welcome back to Ocala Talks. On a Wednesday, it's hump day. Overcast Wednesday. Working towards a cold snap coming up towards the end of the week. But hey, it's Florida. It's February. We're going to have one more cold snap before it gets back to the Florida heat we're used to. And cold snaps affect how this lady does her job on a regular basis. We're talking with Carla Grimsley of Interfaith Emergency Services. Carla, good morning.
Good morning.
Long time no see.
I know, it's been a minute.
I get to see you on Facebook and all, but I don't see you in person a whole lot anymore.
I know.
It's because we're both spoken for, so we don't socialize like we used to.
I've become quite the homebody.
Well, so have I.
My significant other and I are raising chickens.
Yeah, I've my significant other's raising me.
Good for her.
But with the cold, and we're in the middle of winter season. We're almost. It's been exceptionally cold though this season. It's been longer. It started getting cold in December, which is unheard of. Stayed cold for pretty much the whole time. So I bet your operation's been 90 miles an hour for the whole winter.
Yeah, we have gone through some jackets and blankets, and yeah, it's been busy.
How busy has the pandemic made you? Because you were helping people that needed emergency needs. And a lot of people that need emergency needs now, I bet, didn't need emergency needs last January, February.
Well, the good news is that it's kind of starting to level back off. But in April, just to give you an idea, in April of last year, our number of clients increased by 300% just that month.
And that's when the pandemic got into full swing.
That's when all the businesses started
Restaurants
closing.
shut down, bars shut down.
People lost their jobs and unprepared, obviously, and panicked because they didn't have money to pay their rent. And we stepped up, and not only did we do food, and we had to completely change the way we did everything to protect our staff. We lost all of our volunteers because they're all elderly, so we just actually started using the homeless that are there on our property. They jumped up and started helping us do a drive-through food distribution, and we'd have as many as 130, 150 cars lined up every afternoon.
You bring up a very good point that I don't think a lot of people understand. You do, because you talk to the homeless, you interact with the homeless on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. These are not people that want to sit on tables and do nothing. Now, there are a group of them that want to go hold the sign, I'm homeless, I need money and everything. But most of the people that are homeless, if there's a call to action, just because it helps the day go by quicker, they'll jump up and help in a situation. And that helped you because when your volunteers dried up, you needed the help of the homeless.
Yeah. They were our little like angels during the beginning of the pandemic. And we actually ended up hiring some of them. We got funding through the CARES Act to hire to backfill positions that are normally filled by volunteers. And some of those people are still working now, and some of them, when our funding is about to run out for that, I've talked to them and said, would you like for me to connect you to another job? Because now I have connections to the CEP, and so we're going to put some people back to work. And it just started with them having an opportunity to feel needed and feel useful. You have to understand a lot of them have had so much working against them in their lives, and they deal with things that a lot of the average people don't deal with, like mental illness, and then some of them do deal with substance abuse issues, and they've just given up. But if you give them just a smidgen of hope or just believe in them a little bit, it's it's fun to see the difference it makes. It's been interesting to watch.
Right now, homeless is a hot button in
Yeah.
Ocala. Last week or 2 weeks ago, a tent city was raised, 30 different tents, but a lot of also drug use. I believe there was a stabbing that took place there. A lot of animals, because they alerted the Humane Society that when they did this, there may be animals that are going to be taken. This tent city was over by the Humane Society. But when you raise a tent city like that, or a tent encampment like that, not a city, but a tent encampment like that, people who those tents were their home, even though they're technically homeless, they were living in those tents. Now they got nowhere to go. Where are you seeing those people show up at?
They are literally on the sidewalk outside our front gate, and they're there. I thought, during normal times and normal days, we have them there during the day because they can't eat at the soup kitchen, and we make sure they have water when they're thirsty, and that's where we make sure they have blankets if it's getting cold, or jackets, and just try to take care of those most basic needs. But I drove by there the other night at a time I'm not normally there, and guess what? They're
Packed.
still there. Yeah, so basically they are living on the sidewalk outside of our gate. And that's not all of them, but there is a good group of them that are there. And I will tell you, the ones that I know that are there, they either are intellectually challenged or they have mental illness. People would be surprised at how many of those people have intellectual disabilities. They're just,
And they've aged out of programs.
Oh yeah, well,
That's what's happened. They get over the age of 24, 25. Their parents maybe passed away now, so they age out of a program. There's no parental structure. There's no siblings to go to. We just turn our eye and say, "I figured out."
Well, a lot of it too is if you're intellectually challenged, you're going to max out intellectually at around, anywhere from age 6 to 10 is, about the age range. So even if you have a family, let's say, but you're an 18-year-old able-bodied adult that has a mental age of an 8-year-old, they're immature and they leave. They walk out and just want to do what an 8-year-old would want to do, just be free and play. And so they end up on the streets.
Yeah, because you can't tell an 18-year-old they can't leave.
No, and a lot of them now are in their 30s and 40s, but they still have the mental age of a child. So that's sadly that's the case for about 30% of them.
Everybody's got a soft spot for people who are truly homeless and need help, but we never want them in our neighborhood.
No,
That's a catch-22 that's very hard to get over.
it is.
I understand. I was homeless when I was 19 for 11 months. I don't make any bones about it. I lived on MARTA trains and went to the YMCA and worked out, and then went and held down 2 jobs and slept on the MARTA train till I could get enough money to get an apartment in Atlanta when it was very expensive. But I was able to work. I had cognitive
Right.
abilities and everything.
Right.
A lot of these people, like you said, are intellectually challenged. They have no alternatives.
Yeah.
And then we say, well, we feel for you, but not in my neighborhood.
Yeah, and what we need and there was a Public Policy Institute study that was done in 2017, I think, maybe 2019, time goes by, that indicated that we were woefully under beds as far as under the number of beds that we should have for permanent supportive housing for people who are truly disabled and need that extra support. Because even if you give, a lot of them do get checks. They get a disability check because they're truly disabled. And but what happens when you give somebody who's living on the streets with a mental age of 8 a disability check? Well, drug dealers target them because they know they have
Right.
money, and so drug dealers end up with a lot of that money, or other people do. There's a woman, a local woman that used to be a realtor here in town. She's in a wheelchair. You've probably seen her around and about, and typically there will be a younger homeless person pushing her around, and you always wonder, is that her son? No, none of them are related to her, but because she has income, they'll attach to her because she'll share her money with them.
Right.
So, it's just survival. And then they help her too. They do push her around, help her get around. But, a lot of them, believe it or not, do have income, but they don't have enough income to afford an apartment. And even if they did, they don't have the intellect to manage that money and the bills and all that.
Yeah, because if you have the mind of an 8-year-old, you're thinking popsicles and ice cream.
Yeah, and the thing is, the good news is that we're Interfaith is in a position, and we're working with the community services of the county to look for some properties that we could acquire to start growing our supportive housing program. We have already. We've operated for the last 6 years a duplex that was created for that purpose. When women came through our homeless shelter that were intellectually challenged, we inherited a duplex and started managing it, so they had a place to transition. It's a permanent home. It's not temporary. It's not transitional.
Right.
It's permanent. We know when we take those women in that they are going to be our responsibility until they die or until we transition them out to assisted living when they're elderly. They are mostly intellectually challenged.
But how many beds are we talking about?
We have 8 beds, and 6 of those are full. So, we have 2 beds available. When those are full, we're out. So, but there's a lot of men on our property every day that we also recognize are in that same situation. And, that we've seen cycle over and over. There's one, I don't want to say his name because I don't have his permission, but he's a young, just very charming, friendly African-American young man that a lot of the local businesses have reached out to and tried to help and have worked with him. But his disability, just causes him to cycle, and he'll do well for a while, and he works hard, and he's very respectful, and you just can't help but love him.
And then something clicks, and he goes the other way.
Exactly. Or he will, because he has a child's mind, he'll decide to go do drugs or drink or, do something that's not responsible, and kind of fall off the path he's on. But if he had supportive permanent housing, he wouldn't be on the streets. And if he had support around him to help him manage through those times when he makes bad choices, but not become homeless again because he's made that bad choice, it would make all the difference for him. So we're working with the county right now to identify properties, and these would be scattered site properties. So it's not going to be like I'm going to put a big development in your neighborhood, or I'm going to buy, a hotel next to your business. It would be just like our duplex. It's in a neighborhood nobody even knows that these women used to be homeless or that they are handicapped. They live there. It's kept nice. They just are residents of that community. We want to buy more of those, and now I have some federal funding to help me staff it so that we can provide the support services. That's the answer to a lot of the problems with the homeless.
Now, I don't know where your duplex is, but I know that there's a house that sits on Ocala Golf Club on Muni that is a group home.
Oh.
But unless you know the signs of it being a group home, and I worked in the group home world for a while, so unless you recognize the signs of it, it's a very well-kept house. The yard's kept well and everything. There are 6 people. I've deduced there's 6 people that live in this group home, plus 2 staff at all times. So there are 8 people in this group home at all times. But you would have no idea it's a group home.
Right. And that's, to be honest, that is the humane way for these people to be housed. They should be part of a community just like the rest of us. And if they're given the support that they need, a lot of them can. And like the women that live in our duplex, they ride the bus down to Interfaith and volunteer, and they're like part of our family. And it's been a really successful program. So we're ready to expand that and grow more properties so that we can take more of those people off the street. And of course, the next one, we would target some of the men.
How much of a challenge is transportation?
Oh, it's a huge challenge. And the reason it's a challenge is just because our county is so big that it limits.
Bigger than the state of Rhode Island.
Yeah, and it limits our options. So like if we have a group home, we're going to need for it to be
on a
the
bus
bus
line.
route. So that limits, our options as far as getting, and it also limits options for people getting jobs too.
I've always thought, and I know people say, Tom, you know, paper planes and ice cream, but I've always thought some of these abandoned grocery stores and stuff, if you could go in and just build wall. You could turn some of these abandoned grocery stores into apartments or stuff like that.
Studio apartments. That would be huge. Because some of these the homeless could work. A entry-level job that could afford them, a low-cost studio apartment, and that's all they need. I mean, they've been living in a tent that they could
give them a one-room
transition.
apartment with a bathroom. That would be like living in a 3,000 square foot home to some of these.
Right. And some of them, believe it or not, in their little tent cities. Because there are pockets all over Marion County that have them.
There are camps
Some of them, if you go to them, they do keep them clean and they're very, organized and keep them nice. Those are probably the ones that have a little better, social skills and intellect going for them. But then, you go to the ones that are typically become kind of like the eyesores and all are probably where there's drugs being used. And the other thing to remember, though, is every homeless person isn't a drug addict.
No, they're not all on drugs. Let me ask you, a federal court judge just said that the practice that the city of Ocala was doing, where they were arresting homeless for open lodging, that you can't do that if the beds are full. You can't arrest them because they can't get to if a shelter's full, there's no other option but open lodging. How big a decision is that, and how's that going to impact the homeless community?
Well, I mean, it's going to save a lot of them fines that they'll that they can't
they'll never pay.
It just sets them back. I mean, really that.
Failure to appear that they go to jail for and stuff like that.
So it gets them out of your eyesight for a day or two, but yeah, you're setting this person back. I mean, if they do have hopes of ever getting back on track or having a normal life or becoming a productive citizen again, you've just set them back, by years, because they don't have the money to pay those fines, and then they can't get a license. They're just it's not an answer. It's not a solution to the problem, and I guess the best way to describe it would be a Band-Aid that's going to come off and you'll still have the sore.
This is not a problem we're going to fix today.
No, no. And it's not a problem that's ever going to go away. You are never going to have a society where there are no homeless, sadly. There's always going to be homeless, but there needs to always be programs and plans for the ones that you can house. So one of the challenges in working in the field I work in is learning who you can and who you cannot help.
And that's through their desire to want to be helped.
Exactly. And some of them, even though they don't want to be helped, it's not even so much that they, it's not normal to not want to live inside. It's not normal to not want to have comforts of that most of us enjoy. But mentally, a lot of people just succumb to this hopelessness, and again, some of them have mental illness, and they just get trapped in this zone. But there are a lot of them that would accept the help. There are a lot of them that would be housed if they could be, and I think we, as a nation, should be doing everything we can to make that happen. And again, I would venture to say that about 70%. And I've done my research, and I've looked into the stats of what makes up this population of homeless. 70% of them suffer from either mental illness or intellectual disabilities. That percentage, if we can get them treated for their mental illness, get them and the ones that are intellectually challenged, just get them the support they need, get them housed, and with the wraparound services. They don't have to be homeless. And like I said, the duplex that Interfaith has been operating proves that. These are women that you used to see on the streets. They were on the streets for years before we housed them. They were the ones that, you would probably walk away from because you couldn't quite figure them out. And they're wonderful, kind women who clean their house now, and they keep it nice. I was in there yesterday, and I was amazed at how well these ladies keep their home.
It's amazing how if you supply somebody with the basic necessities of life, how they will flourish.
And the main thing that we've given these women, the main gift that Interfaith
their
has
pride
provided,
back.
well, their dignity
Right.
and security. They feel safe.
Oh yeah.
And that is huge.
And I would think a woman would be really susceptible to attacks and everything on the street much more than men are.
They are. So a lot of the homeless women you see have been traumatized beyond what you can imagine. I mean, it's so again, another thing that we've added at Interfaith, if we are truly wanting to meet the needs of the people we're serving, we've added a trauma therapist. So we have a therapist now that deals, every woman that comes through our shelter program gets the benefit of having therapy with a licensed therapist that's trained in how to help people deal with trauma. And she's had amazing success with some of these women. It's been like life-changing. And again, the difference of going back to homelessness or realizing they can have a life again. And we're about to, we're trying to hire a second one so that we can offer those services to even more of our the clients, specifically the homeless population we work with.
Are your volunteers starting to come back?
A little bit. We've had a few of them come back. Most of them are, over the age of 60 or 70, and
Right.
they're still a little hesitant.
As they should be.
Right. And some of them are getting the vaccine. I think when more of them get their second vaccination, we're going to have them calling us wanting to come back. We keep hoping. We keep pushing it back. Like we were hoping in March we could start having them come back. And now we've decided we probably need to hang on to our temporary staff through March. And
Have you found, because you see the homeless on a daily basis, have you found a COVID issue with the homeless?
Not one.
Not one.
Not one. I had a homeless person that thought he had COVID, but I don't think he did. He never got tested. I think he was just maybe probably looking for some sympathy. But he didn't have any of the symptoms that are typical with COVID. I don't see them get sick very, the ones that are sick have
Well, there's
chronic.
so much out in the elements that their immune system is amazing.
But getting the cold and the flu and all that, they just don't. Even headaches, let them know. We have a medicine cabinet in our Center for Life, and tell them if you ever have a headache or cold or whatever, you just need over the counter. They don't come because they don't get sick. Now, with that said, the ones that are sick are typically have chronic illnesses like diabetes or COPD. They have these serious illnesses. But just the illnesses that we treat with over-the-counter medicines that we get from germs, they tend to not have. I don't know any of them that got it. I got a call from a TV station asking me if we were helping the homeless get the vaccination. And I'm like, for one, they're not asking for it. Secondly, I don't see them as high priority from where I sit because they're not missing work or they're not passing it around. They're not getting it. But I would rather my volunteers, my
Right.
senior citizens and people that volunteer get vaccinated so they can come back and serve, because that is affecting the homeless more than the volunteers being gone affects the homeless more than the virus did.
Well, if people want to help, because you are a 501(c), you do operate, you get grants from the government and everything, but you still operate at a budget that is dependent on the community at large.
Right. The only programs that we're using grant funding for are some of those that we just started accepting federal funding for the first time ever for working directly with the homeless, with the street level homeless. Everything else we do at Interfaith is 100% funded by this community. The food distribution, which is really our biggest ministry, we in a typical year will serve up to 30,000 people throughout the year. We were well over 40,000 by April of this year.
And I bet with churches being closed for the time period they were and everything, because I know one of the things we do at Blessed Trinity is the first every month we have a big food drive, and then it's distributed. And so I know that's just one church.
Yeah.
So I know that probably when churches closed for a while during the pandemic, the rate of people that were donating and the food you were getting probably dropped significantly.
Well, the food coming in did. We have had churches that have just rallied, and we've had neighborhoods that have rallied. It's honestly, Tom, I've been more impressed with this community than I've ever been. And I've been nothing but impressed since I came to Interfaith with how this community gives and how generous they are. But the number of people, individuals, that when they got a stimulus check they didn't need,
They gave it to you.
gave it to us.
You know,
it blew my mind.
Give people a way they can get in touch with you because we got about 30 seconds. How they can get in touch if they want to help.
Okay, if you want to help, you can call 352-629-8868, and you can get more information there. Or just go to our website, iesmarion.org, and that's I for Interfaith, E for Emergency, S for Services, Marion for the county.org, iesmarion.org.
Carla Grimsley, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Try not to stay away so long this time.
I won't.
Carla Grimsley from Interfaith. Hey, I want to thank all my guests, R.J. Jenkins, Carla Grimsley, all my callers, and you, the listeners, because without you, there wouldn't be a radio program. I'm Tom Schmitz. I'll be back here, same bat time, same bat channel tomorrow. Till then, you're listening to WOCA The Source.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.